Welcome to the second quarter award ceremony for 2016. Special guest here today, City Manager Jeff Bremer. Thank you for coming. And Assistant City Manager Daniel Holbrook. Thank you also. Let's go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome, and it's pretty apropos that we're having an award ceremony for the work done over the past few months, right after having just gone through our three-phase National Night Out celebration. As Sergeant Dobler says, we gave crime a going-away party in Port St. Lucie. So I can tell you, between Saturday's event and the trolley tour last night, this community really, really loves you guys, every one of you, for what you do for it. And there was a heap of love being put on those of us who were on the trolley last night, and just positive comments all the way around on Saturday too, if you weren't out at the event. But the community really came out and showed its support on both events for the police department and the employees. And last week, the kids had a blast with the first phase on the March Against Crime. And so let's go ahead and get started with service citations. Detective Boham.
Receiving their 10-year service citation, Officer Jamie Byrne, Officer Peter Chun, Officer Mike Semino, Officer Courtney Druga, Officer Justin Kearns, Officer Ryan Lodwick, Officer Mitch Miller, Administrative Assistant Carmen Vasquez. "15 years of service, Officer Carl Durbin, Officer Christopher Neidl, Officer Anthony Romani, Officer John Seeley. "20 years of service, Animal Control Officer Tandy DeMag,
Katie started when she was 9.
"25 years of service, Sergeant Freddie Williams. And for 30 years of service, Detective Sergeant Jan Bernstein, Officer Carl Toppin.
probably getting a gold watch. That's why I can't.
Not yet, Carl. Yeah. You got to stay another 5 till you figure out how to wear the uniform.
All right, receiving certifications for the Career Ladder Program. Lieutenant Casey Donnell, Lieutenant to Senior Lieutenant. Lieutenant Leo Nimzik, Lieutenant to Senior Lieutenant. Sergeant John Holman, Sergeant to Senior Sergeant. Officer Trevor Horton, Police Officer 2 to Master Police Officer. Detective Keith Boham, Police Officer 1 to Police Officer 2. Detective Timothy Bort, Police Officer 1 to Police Officer 2. Detective Stephen Ruther, Police Officer 1 to Police Officer 2. Officer Michael Casey, Police Officer to Police Officer 1. And Officer Daniel Papaleo, Police Officer to Police Officer 1. Receiving the Educational Achievement Award, Detective Christopher Fulcher, who earned his Master's of Science degree. Receiving the Administrative Excellence Award for Identity Theft Changes, Lieutenant Mark DeMeo, Lieutenant Scott Beck, Administrator William May, Detective Sergeant Britton Black, Sergeant Michelle Steele, Detective Paul Griffith, Detective Wade Wilnow, PSA Supervisor Kim Reisinger, Officer Jennifer DiMatteo Bennett. The nomination submitted by Assistant Chief Richard Del Toro reads as follows. During this quarter, FDLE made significant changes to our current practices regarding identity theft, and to ensure a smooth transition occurred, you were assigned to a focus group. Members of the focus group contacted FDLE regarding the necessary forms needed to meet the new requirements, change the general guidelines to reflect the changes, discuss who enters the information into NCIC, created a process for 30 days following entry and annual validation of this information, created a training plan for the entire agency, and trained all department personnel. It is because of the above reasons and countless more that you have received the Administrative Excellence Award.
You're the first person to get on this one.
Also receiving the Administrative Excellence Award is Officer Frankie Borges for Special Events Civic Center Parks. All right. Next up, the Administrative Excellence Award for the Sexual Offender Coordinator, Officer Justin Kearns. Receiving the Presidential Citation, Lieutenant Casey Donnell, Sergeant Rodney Dobler, Sergeant Robert McGee, Sergeant Richard Schichtel, Officer Stephen Brown, Officer Joseph Chamberlain, Officer Daniel Dahlia, Officer Gerard Harrington, Officer Scott Johnson, Officer Justin Kearns, Officer Fred Nags, Officer Andrew Lawler, Officer Raphael Lushbaugh, Officer Joshua Pito, Officer Terry Russell, Officer Robert Vogland. The nomination reads as follows. On May 3rd and 5th, 2016, you participated in a multi-agency operation charged with protecting the President of the United States. You participated in the presidential motorcade for President Obama's visit to the Floridian Country Club. During this task, you each displayed dedication and professionalism to ensure the safe arrival and departure of the President of the United States. Your attention to duty was complimented by 2 sergeants with the West Palm Beach Police Department. For assisting the President's Secret Service protection team, you have been awarded a presidential citation. Good job. Unit citations for robbery at the 4300 block of Southwest Darwin Boulevard. Sergeant Martin Kern, Sergeant Daniel Harrington, Detective Paul Griffith, Officer Michael Bianco, Officer Brian Boyce, Officer Robert Burdick, Officer Michael Colton, Officer Courtney Druga, Officer Paul Knowles, Officer Jeremy Lewis. On Tuesday, June 7, 2016, Officer Lewis responded to a plaza on Southwest Darwin Boulevard regarding an armed robbery. The victim was organizing a narcotics transaction and was robbed by gunpoint by 3 individuals. Officer Lewis utilized a social media site to learn the description of one of the suspects and coordinated with District 3 officers to locate the suspect. Officers located a suspect and he was taken into custody without incident. Officer Bianco interviewed the suspect post-Miranda and discovered the location of the backpack that contained 2.4 ounces of cannabis and also was able to identify a second suspect. Officers Boyce and Lewis retrieved the backpack from the canal and entered it into evidence. Sergeant Harrington, Sergeant Kern, Officer Colton, and Officer Bianco made contact with the suspect's family, and because of the excellent rapport with the family, officers were able to convince the mother to assist in locating her son. Officer Colton found papers belonging to the victim that were taken out of the stolen backpack and discarded by the suspect's home. Officer Druga began a name search in RMS and found a man fitting a description of one of the suspect's friends. Officers made contact with him at his residence, and he confirmed that 2 suspects confessed to robbing the victim and stealing the cannabis. The acquaintance provided an address for one of the suspects, and officers were able to take the suspect into custody without incident. Sergeant Kern spoke again with the 3rd suspect's mother and had him turn himself in at the police department. Detective Griffith interviewed all 3 suspects and was able to receive a confession from each. Based on the information received, officers went to a wooded lot near the suspect's residence and located a backpack containing a handgun and 66 grams of cannabis. Due to your excellent investigative skills and working as a team, as well as outstanding communication skills, you apprehended and arrested all 3 suspects. The stolen property and handgun was recovered. Congratulations on a job well done.
You know, we often talk about teamwork, and sometimes to the point of it becoming cliche, but this case is an excellent example of a change in philosophy over this past several years, where people are really starting to collaborate on solutions, and that was a very complicated investigation, and that, I'm sure Danny boiled it down to a memorandum. It was probably a little more chaotic than that with all those moving parts, but to be able to control a scene, get the pertinent information, follow up on the leads, and then split the work up and go out and effectively do it is what makes our clearance rate so high in this city. And you know, sometimes people say to me, "You sure do have a lot of people come up for one particular small case." Well, they're not. None of them are small cases. They're all big cases. You know, we're going to hear about some other cases today that were, you know, vandalism. Well, in big cities, they don't even think about vandalism. But in Port St. Lucie, we don't have graffiti, we don't have trash, we don't have people running around knocking mailboxes down. That's because we take every case seriously and we follow it up. And so, great job on that. Everybody involved, super teamwork. You know, way to collaborate. And thank you, Terry. Stop laughing.
Unit citation for vehicle burglaries, 2700 block of Southeast Eagle Drive. Sergeant Darren Howie, Detective Timothy Bort, Officer Robert Brink, Officer Jeremy Lewis, Officer Mitch Miller. Acting on information relayed by Sergeant Howie in the early morning hours of May 18, 2016, Officers Brink and Miller were deployed in an unmarked vehicle in response to 5 vehicle burglaries on Southeast Osprey Ridge that occurred the night prior. During their patrol, they observed 2 suspicious people walking down the street in heavy rain at 1:40 a.m. and stopped out with them. The officers observed the male suspect was wearing latex gloves and T-shirt around his neck to conceal his face. Both suspects were arrested for loitering and prowling and transported to the station for CID interviews with the assistance of Officer Lewis. During the interview, Detective Bort obtained confessions from the male suspect and was able to clear multiple vehicle burglaries occurring over the past month in Zone 22. Congratulations on a job well done. Unit citation for criminal mischief series. Officer Michael Casey, Officer Michael Connor, Officer Kenneth Frid, Officer Sandra Inswasti, Officer Anthony Lavecchio, Officer Jerry Roberts. In the late night hours of June 22, 2016, Officer Lavecchio was dispatched to a report of 2 juveniles spotted near freshly painted graffiti on a business plaza on Port St. Lucie Boulevard. As he arrived on scene, he observed 2 subjects matching the description walking away from the vandalized property. Before he was able to cross traffic and confront the subjects, they fled on foot. District 2 units canvassed the area and finally located the suspects outside a convenience store. Officers approached the subjects, and during a pat-down for weapons, one suspect pulled away from the officers and fled. Officer Lavecchio gave chase and was able to apprehend the suspect a few hundred feet away. Responding officers Roberts assisted in securing the suspects while UCI officers Connor and Inswasti processed the scene. The suspects were a male and female juvenile and both refused to cooperate. A search of the individuals led to the discovery of a large knife, bandana, and gloves in the pocket of the suspect who fled. He was arrested for loitering and prowling and resisting an officer and transported to the DJJ detention center. The female juvenile accomplice was documented and released to her parents. Over the ensuing 24 hours, 3 additional incidents of graffiti were located in the proximity to the vandalized report. All 4 incidences contained similar wording and design. Thinking outside the box, officers Connor and Casey scoured social media sites in attempts to identify the names written in the graffiti and were able to link the graffiti to the female suspect identified the prior evening. Officers Connor and Lavecchio met with day shift officer Frid, who documented the 4th incident of vandalism. Together, the 3 officers responded to the juvenile female's residence, where they presented an abundance of evidence they diligently identified to the suspect and her parents. Not only did they solicit a full written confession, but also the positive identification of the suspect's accomplice. Due to the cooperation and lack of any prior criminal history, the juvenile was entered into the Port St. Lucie Police Department Juvenile Restorative Program, where she can make amends for her actions without causing any permanent harm to her future. Officers Lavecchio and Connor continued their investigation until it came to a full resolution. On June 28, 2016, armed with additional evidence garnished from the female juvenile's admissions, they responded to the male juvenile's residence where they met with the suspect and his parents. The officers obtained an additional confession for the remainder of the outstanding vandalism, thus clearing out all 4 cases by arrest and putting an immediate end to the spree of graffiti before it was able to spread and infect the remainder of the city. It is for all the reasons above that you are most deserving for a unit citation. Congratulations on a job well done. Unit citation, burglary, Southwest Broadview Street. Canine Officer Robbie Gibbons, Officer Aisha Hardison, Officer Corey Kresick, Officer James Luongo, Officer Kayla Rude, Officer Benjamin Thayer, Officer Julia Tranberg, Officer Joseph Trevasol, Officer Jason Vega. On Thursday, April 21st, 2016, Sergeant Kaminsky and Officer Lewis were on routine foot patrol at the Hookah Moon Club on Southeast Port St. Lucie Boulevard. Officer Lavecchio heard what believed to be 2 gunshots as he sat in his patrol car. Oops. Yeah, got out of order. On June 12, 2016, officers responded to Southwest Broadview Street in reference to a burglary in progress. The victim called 911 to report that she had heard glass breaking in the back of the house and observed a figure in the shadows. Responding officers confirmed forced entry and quickly set up a perimeter for the canine unit. Officer Gibbons arrived on scene and deployed his canine partner. As he was conducting the track, officers observed a vehicle leaving the area at a high rate of speed. A traffic stop was conducted on the vehicle, and the officers observed the driver to be extremely sweaty and bleeding from his hands. Officers also observed flat-screen TV in the back of the vehicle, which was later identified by the victim. This quick and alert response by officers resulted in the arrest of the suspect and the property being returned. Congratulations on a job well done. Shooting, Southeast Port St. Lucie Boulevard. Sergeant Kevin Kaminsky, Detective Timothy Bort, Officer Michael Connor, Officer Sandra Swasti, Officer Jeremy Lewis, Officer Anthony Lavecchio, Officer Daniel Papaleo, Officer Colton Reisinger. On Thursday, April 21st, 2016, Sergeant Kaminsky and Officer Lewis were on routine foot patrol at the Hookah Moon Club on Southeast Port St. Lucie Boulevard. Officer Lavecchio heard what believed to be 2 gunshots as he sat in his patrol car. He noticed a white vehicle leaving the parking lot with a rapid acceleration. During this time, the occupants in the vehicle shot off 4 more gunshots. Officers found the vehicle hiding at the Bridge Plaza, and a traffic stop was conducted. Inside the vehicle, it was observed that there were spent shell casings, and the occupants were then detained by officers. A witness positively identified the suspect, and 4 other sworn witness statements were gathered. Detective Bort interviewed the suspect, whom post Miranda warning confessed to the shooting because a rival gang member was speaking badly about him. Officer Lewis completed a DUI investigation, and Officers Connor and Swasti processed the scene. Officer Papaleo was charged with UCI as he processed the vehicle and all evidence pertinent to the case. The suspect was arrested and charged with DUI, discharging a firearm within 1,000 feet of a person, and possession of cannabis under 20 grams. Due to your quick thinking and teamwork, as well as outstanding communication skills, you apprehended the suspect and possibly saved innocent citizens from injury or death. Congratulations on a job well done. Vehicle operations and defensive driving training. Lieutenant John Scott, Sergeant John Holman, Sergeant Steve Helseth, Detective Matthew Cuba, Officer Julio Boris, Officer Michael Casey, Officer Anthony Sicala, Officer Carl Durbin, Canine Officer John Fazio, Officer Martin Gobriel, Officer Jerry Harrington, Canine Officer William Harris, Officer Scott Johnson, Officer Robert Loop, Officer Adrian Martella, Officer James Olson, Officer Christina Roscoe, Officer Ben Thayer, Officer Joseph Trepusal, Officer Robert Vogelin, Officer Walt Wyckoff, SOS Coordinator Jack White. During this quarter, Training Coordinator Officer James Olson, along with the rest of the training section instructors, provided approximately 170 hours of instruction for 3 high liability topics that includes firearm qualifications and training, defensive tactics, and vehicle operations. The training section not only trained sworn personnel, but also trained the civilian traffic investigators, crime scene investigators, and animal control officers in both vehicle operations and defensive tactics. In this short amount of time, approximately 250 personnel attended high liability training. While many agencies of our size have a full-time training unit, most of our instructors have committed to conduct training on a voluntary basis, secondary to their regular position. Although instructors are sometimes expected to create and document the lesson plans, thus taking on additional duties in conjunction with instructing, They do so because they have a genuine passion and desire to ensure that the agency personnel are receiving the most current and relevant training. Great job. Shooting, Southeast Kearney Terrace. Sergeant Brian Kenny, Detective Maya August, Detective Robert O'Hara, Officer Robert Brink, Officer Corey Kresick, Officer James Luongo, Officer Ben Thayer, Officer Joseph Trevisol, Officer Jason Vega. On the night of June 20th, 2016, officers responded to Southeast Kearney Terrace in reference to shooting activity. The victim called 911 to report her house was being shot at and provided a suspect vehicle description. Arriving officers found evidence of shotgun blasts in front of the home and shell casings in the street. Officers immediately began canvassing nearby streets for the suspect and located the suspect's vehicle. Officers conducted a traffic stop and detained 5 suspects. A 12-gauge shotgun was recovered, and the shell casings matched 2 casings recovered at the victim's house. Also recovered was a small caliber handgun. Detectives August and O'Hara interviewed the suspects and obtained confessions from 2 of them. This quick and alert response by officers resulted in the arrest of these suspects and recovery of the weapons. Congratulations on a job well done. Receiving the life-saving citation for automobile crash Southwest Savona and Gatlin Boulevard, Officer Michael Williams. On Friday, June 17th, 2016, you responded to a report of a vehicle crash at a gas station at the corner of Southwest Savona and Southwest Gatlin Boulevard. The driver of the vehicle suffered a medical episode that rendered him unconscious and caused him to crash his vehicle into the storefront. Upon arrival, you found the driver unconscious and not breathing. At that time, you immediately removed the subject from the vehicle and began performing CPR. After several minutes of CPR, the subject began to breathe and soon after recovered. The subject was later transported to the hospital and was expected to make a full recovery. Congratulations on your outstanding life-saving actions. Also receiving a life-saving citation for attempted suicide, Southwest Feldman Avenue, Officer David Caniello, Officer Courtney Druga. On Monday, May 30th, 2016, you were dispatched to a concern of a female who was making suicidal statements and had locked herself in her garage with the vehicle running. You arrived on scene and heard a vehicle running inside the garage. A window was broken to gain entry into the home, and the unconscious female was located inside of her vehicle. The female was pulled from her vehicle, and you began CPR until rescue personnel arrived. Due to your quick response, the female was revived and transported to the hospital. Congratulations on a job well done. Accommodation citation, K9 Happy, Northwest Monticello Place, Animal Control Officer Gregory Gibbons. On Tuesday, June 21st, 2016, you were dispatched to Northwest Monticello Place regarding a dog in distress. The call taker advised that an 82-year-old citizen's Maltese dog named Happy was caught in her reclining chair. Upon your arrival, you observed the dog's fur and tail had become stuck in the electric reclining chair. With the approval of the owner, you disassembled the chair and freed Happy, who had only had minor injuries. You then notified the emergency veterinarian at Veterinary Medical Center and advised them the owner was en route to the office with Happy. You are being commended for your determination and initiative in assisting an elderly resident in her time of need. Your assessment of the unusual situation and actions led to a successful outcome for the elderly resident and Happy. Congratulations on an outstanding job.
Greg just told me the chair didn't make it, though.
Accommodation citation records request for Pulse nightclub shooter, record supervisor Linda Cole, record specialist Karen Baggett, record specialist Elaine Cook. The nomination submitted by Administrator Bill May reads as follows. As a result of the horrific mass shooting in Orlando, along with the fact that the shooter had ties to our city, the record section was inundated with a massive influx of record requests. Record Supervisor Cole, Record Specialist Baggett, and Cook worked a total of 71 hours in 1 week to complete 39 requests. These requests required research, coordination, multitasking, and being able to change directions swiftly and efficiently. Record Supervisor Linda Cole coordinated the entire effort, ensured all requests were satisfied, all while continuing to run her section. Record Specialist Baggett and Cook assisted in this feat in a proficient demeanor without hesitation, all while completing their regularly assigned duties. This enormous task was most stressful and was completed in an accelerated manner. Supervisor Cole and Record Specialist Baggett handled it all with professionalism and courtesy and are most deserving of accommodation citation. Congratulations on a job well done.
There's really no way to put into words how much work went into that. I know I get copied on every single public records request, and you can imagine after the travesty in Orlando, and once our city was tied to that, the number of public records requests that came in. It was 39, but that some of those had multiple requests, right? So, you know, not all hard work involves jumping tall buildings and stopping speeding trains, but thank you so much for keeping us out of litigation, because that's exactly what would have resulted had we dropped the ball in that case. So thank you.
Receiving the Civic Award for Homeless Individual at Target, Officer Mike Cimino, Officer Kristen Harrell. Although they're not here, I'll go ahead and read it. During a call-out of an unwelcome individual at Target in tradition, you discovered a young adult male was disheveled and looked malnourished. This young man traveled by bus to North Florida from Indiana. He purchased a bicycle in North Florida and then traveled by bicycle to Port St. Lucie. He was out of money and was attempting to clean himself up in the restroom of the store when he was asked to leave by store security. Officer Cimino, you spoke with store management who allowed you to escort the gentleman through the store to purchase toiletries and spent time speaking with the man about life in general. This man had specific dietary restrictions and you took time to find food items he would be able to eat. As you went to pay for the products, the manager at the store donated the items to the man. Officer Harrell, you were thoughtful enough to purchase a special dietary lunch with your own money so the young man was able to eat. Officer Cimino, you then bought him a bus ticket so he was able to reach his destination. I am truly humbled by this selfless act, and I believe that by treating this man with respect and dignity, you positively impacted his life. Your kind gesture is a testament of what a great police officer truly is. It is for this selfless act that you're being recognized with this Civic Award. Co-volunteers of the quarter, Eunice Crump and Evelyn Gatton. On Tuesday, June 7, 2016, a golf cart was reported stolen from Treasure Coast High School. Southwest Community Patrol Eunice Crump read of the account in the local paper. Eunice asked her community patrol partner, Evelyn Gatton, to patrol and look out for the cart. Evelyn found a picture of the cart on Facebook and printed it out. They showed the picture to area residents, asking them to call 911 if they saw the golf cart. Subsequent to their patrol, a resident whom they had contacted and shown the picture did in fact see the golf cart between a house and a fence. That resident notified 911, leading to the recovery of the golf cart. Eunice Crump and Evelyn Gatton were outstanding in the way they assisted the department in recovering the golf cart and are valuable members of the Port St. Lucie Police Volunteer Program. Congratulations on a job well done. Civilian of the Quarter, Evidence Technician Lisette Lowe. The nomination for Supervisor John Briney reads as follows. During this quarter, you have distinguished yourself amongst your peers as having higher than normal stats for completing your assigned duties each month. You have proven to perform your tasks with little or no supervision and in a swift manner. You performed as a leader during the majority of this year while the division was short-staffed. You went above and beyond your daily duties, and as a team leader, you made certain the shelving project was to be completed on time, yet providing your utmost professional assistance to the needs of other divisions. You also made several suggestions that streamlined the narcotics destruction method and streamlined the process to obtain a court order for the destruction, thereby saving countless hours. Other suggestions you made affected the storage of evidence and the way we currently combine boxes, maximizing the evidence storage. Your ideas resulted in the reduction of inventory space, streamlined evidence intake and purging processes, and so much more. You continue to improve our performance, and your experience in the OSSI evidence module has helped tremendously with the conversion from our old RMS to the new RMS evidence module. You're an enormous asset to the police department. It is for all the reasons above that you are civilian of the second quarter of 2016. Congratulations on a job performance. Detective of the Quarter, Detective Robert Perkins. The nomination from Detective Sergeant Jan Spurn reads, Detective Sergeant Bernstein describes you as an exceptional investigator who investigates the cases with professionalism and class that is beyond reproach. He describes you as a very humble individual who declines any acclaim or accolades in regards to completed cases. During this quarter, you were assigned a series of smash-and-grab auto burglaries. The suspects were stopped in Fort Pierce, and 3 male suspects were subsequently arrested for those crimes in our area. You were assigned to Spree in the Osprey Ridge area of the city, interviewed a loitering and prowling suspect, and received a confession for a past vehicle burglary on southeast Osprey Ridge. You were charged with he was charged with 2 other vehicle burglaries in the same area. You identified 3 suspects in a series of vandalisms by BB guns in District 2. All 3 were arrested and ultimately charged with multiple counts of vandalism to houses and vehicles. Based upon the facts outlined above and several more, you are awarded the Detective of the Second Quarter for 2016. Congratulations on an outstanding job. Officer of the Quarter, Officer Michael Casey.
Michael had an issue come up that he needed to deal with, so he was unable to make it. He did call us and let us know, though. So we're going to go ahead and read the nomination.
The nomination was submitted by Sergeant Kevin Kaminsky. During this quarter, you have distinguished yourself amongst your peers as a highly motivated, dedicated, and a team-first police officer. You have led by example to your peers and are an impeccable asset to the department. You frequently initiate investigative contacts while on patrol that routinely result in the arrest of offenders due solely to your proactive approach. On May 7, 2016, you made contact with a suspicious vehicle at Sportsman's Park at 2 a.m. You discovered an adult male suspect involved in a sexual activity with a juvenile female who'd snuck out of her parents' home. In addition, narcotics were discovered in the vehicle, and the suspect was arrested and relinquished to CID for investigation. While patrolling a hotspot area on June 23, 2016 around midnight, you stopped a suspicious male on a bike wearing gloves with no lights while riding through a neighborhood. You questioned the suspect, who gave conflicting stories about his presence. The subject was discovered to be on probation for loitering and prowling, trespass, and resisting an officer. He was arrested, and the hotspot was closed without further incident. On July 1, 2016, you observed 2 suspicious juveniles outside a vacant residence while patrolling a crime pattern area. The subjects fled when you attempted to make contact. A perimeter was established, and the canine track led to a nearby residence. Attempts to make contact with the residence met with a negative result. However, you noted an odor of cannabis at the house, as well as other signs indicative of a marijuana grow house. You forwarded this information to SID, who secured a search warrant within 12 hours. Upon execution of the warrant, a cannabis cultivation operation was discovered with an approximate 75 mature cannabis plants inside. These incidents, a small snapshot into the proactive police work you continually perform. Not to mention, as a field training officer, 2 of the above-mentioned cases were initiated by you in the process of training newly hired officers. Your exemplary policing skills are one that will be ingrained in the young, upcoming officers who will shape the face of the agency for years to come. In addition to your exemplary self-initiated activity, you're a true team player. Routinely, you are the first to respond to back up fellow officers and never miss a call for service in your zone. You display a genuine concern for your fellow officers and a desire to help whenever and wherever possible. On June 23, 2016, you learned of a vandalism investigation being conducted by a zone partner from the day prior. You took the initiative to assist in the investigation by searching social media sites for associated names that may have been of evidentiary value. You located evidence that linked a potential suspect to the graffiti. Your team-first mentality was paramount in developing evidence, which ultimately led to a confession in Officer Lavecchio's investigations and cleared up 4 active vandalism cases. Finally, as a certified agency training instructor, you have performed your duties as an FTO and making proactive arrests on road patrol, and devote your time to help train the 200-plus personnel as a firearms and defensive tactics instructor. Your great work ethic, motivation, and proven leadership is what makes it all worth to be recognized as the Port St. Lucie Police Department Officer of the Second Quarter.
I was remiss earlier in not acknowledging Vice Mayor Linda Bartz is in the room. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And looking out across the crowd just now, I came to the harsh reality that retired Sergeant Jeff Harsh is in the room. That concludes our award ceremony today. We do have, at least to saying, we do have refreshments back at the station, so join us back there. Thank you.